So, college football is right around the corner, and with any start of the season, we get our annual preseason AP poll. This thing is notorious for being awful. Look at these past preseason polls for 24 and 2025. Half of these teams finished 6-6. So I want to give my prediction what I think is going to be the preseason poll. Starting off at 25, I have Oklahoma State. And again, this is not what I think the top 25 teams are. That will be pinned up here. This is what I think the AP poll is going to rate these teams. And starting off at 25, I'm going to have the Cowboys of Oklahoma State. The Cowboys in Eric Morris's first year, coming from North Texas, pretty much the entire team from North Texas, the quarterback, the head coach, the running back, Caleb Hawkins, he's going to be a phenomenal running back in the Big 12. The coaching staff all came from them, and then they also brought in a ton of players from the portal. When you look at Oklahoma State, I don't even know if there's any starters coming from the previous year. That was last year was a disaster. The past couple of years for Oklahoma State has been really, really bad. Mike Gundy getting fired after he's been there literally for, I think, like 10, 20 years. So it's a new era for the Cowboys, but it's going to be fun. Drew Mestemaker, the quarterback in North Texas, now the quarterback at Oklahoma State, was, I think, the third or second highest portal quarterback in the transfer portal. North Texas statistically had the number one offense last year in college football. They were averaging, I think, 43 points a game. And I definitely think that Oklahoma State will have the opportunity to contend or win the Big 12 this year. At 24, staying in the Big 12, I am going to go with Utah. Utah lost everything. I am not very high on Utah. They are returning their quarterback. The guy, their new head coach, Morgan Scaley, who was kind of the apprentice of Kyle Whittingham, has sat there for years. The program was waiting for Whittingham to retire. He doesn't retire, so they said, you got to go, even though we just had a 10 or 11 win season last year. But they have Morgan Scaley. They are returning Devin Dampier, who was absolutely electric last year. And if Michigan did not have Bryce Underwood, I think Devin Dampier would have immediately transferred to Michigan. Devin Dampier would have been much better than Bryce Underwood. And I think kind of like Ole Miss, there's just, aside from the quarterback, there's not a lot going on. A lot of people are high on Utah. I'm not very high on Utah this year in the first year without Kyle Whittingham. But I think the AP poll is going to respect them. So that's why I have them at 24. At 23, I am going to the Big Ten in a team that I'm also not very high on. They, I think, can get to 8 wins, but being ranked in the top 25, I think will be a little bit hard for them. And that is Iowa. I just did a video on Iowa. I did my Ohio State versus Iowa prediction video. And as I was doing my research about the Hawkeyes roster this year, I was pretty concerned because when you look at the program standard of Iowa under Kirk Ferentz and Phil Parker, it is, we're bringing in 3 stars. We're going to develop them for 3 to 5 years, and we're going to be able to have a couple upsets and have a good season because we're going to beat some teams in Kinnick at home. You know, that's where teams go to die. But this year on defense, the roster is incredibly young. The defense, defensive line, edge, linebacker, corner, quarterback. Jeremy Helinski is like a redshirt freshman. He has only had, I think, 8 passing yards in his career. Kamari Moulton is kind of the only senior veteranship on this team, which is great. Him and Cade Piper, the center. But aside from that, the defense that has kept Iowa above 500 is young. This team is going to have to rely on their offense. Their quarterback has only ever had 8 passing yards in his entire career. I'm not high on Iowa this year, but I think they will sneak into the AP poll at 23. At 22, in the ACC, I am going to go with SMU. SMU is sneaky. SMU is very, very sneaky in the ACC this year because they are returning their quarterback, Kevin Jennings, for another year. It seems like he has been at SMU for like 5-6 years. 2 years ago, well, I guess he was a true sophomore. They made the CFP. They almost won the ACC that year as well in their first year. Remember, that was the Clemson game where they came all the way back. Clemson had the game-winning field goal. They go to the playoff. They get smacked by Penn State. And in that game, you're seeing the highlights of it now. Kevin Jennings did not play well. last year was much improved from Kevin Jennings. Watch the Baylor game. Watch the Miami game. That roster was holding Kevin Jennings back, and I think Kevin Jennings had a lot of money to transfer. I think it was to Alabama. So Kevin Jennings had the chance to leave. He stays at SMU. And I think after heartbreaking losses last year to Cal at the end of the year, I think Rhett Lashlee, he's a good enough coach. This is their third year in the FBS. They're going to be good in the ACC. Staying in the ACC at 21, I have Louisville. Louisville is very underrated. I am so excited to watch Louisville this year because Lincoln Kienholz transfers from Ohio State, goes to Louisville, has one of maybe actually the best running back in the entire country in Isaac Brown. They do lose their best receiver, Chris Bell, but I love Jeff Brom, his coaching, the stuff they brought in the portal. I am so excited for Louisville. I think Louisville is absolutely a top 3, maybe even top 2 team in the ACC. Can they rival, Miami, SMU, Virginia Tech under James Franklin in their first year? So I'm very excited about Louisville. At 20, and this is where the SEC bias is going to come in because they should not be ranked anywhere near the top 25. But they absolutely will be. That is Florida. Florida will be ranked in the poll. They will not finish the season in the AP poll. They are a team that it seems like everybody is really loving this year. I understand it. I understand why. I just disagree. I love Jaden Ball. He's a great running back. I love Hayden Hansen. Bro's a tight end, 6'8", block and catch, is aggressive. I think that's great and all. But Aaron Filia, who's the projected starter, just does not seem to have the experience that you would need with this schedule to be successful under year one of John Summerall, who came from Tulane, took Tulane to the CFP last year. I think Florida in a couple of years can be good, just not right now. I think they'll probably go 7-5, 6-6. Maybe they can get a couple upsets, but I think it would be an improvement of what last year was because of how, disappointing, you lost to... you beat Texas, but you lost to South Florida. Your coach got fired. Lagway leaves. And that's the thing that people aren't talking about is Lagway leaving. And we'll see him at Baylor. Was it Florida's fault or was it Lagway's fault for not performing well at Florida? So I got the Gators at 20. At 19, sticking in the SEC, a team that I think everyone think is overrated, that I actually think is underrated and that should be in the AP poll, that is South Carolina. I think this team has the chance to be awesome. Actually just awesome. They are bringing back their quarterback, Lenora Sellers, for his third year starting. They have a top 3 edge rusher in the entire country in Dylan Stewart. And on top of that, they have the fastest man in the world, the Flash, Nick Harbor, Mr. 99 speed. The only thing that I am concerned about is Shane Beamer. He's just not a great coach, and it sucks that, you have to live up to the legacy of Frank Beamer, but he's just not great. I don't think he's that great of a coach. And if you didn't watch that SEC documentary that came out a couple years ago, he said that it's not a matter of if he gets fired at South Carolina, it's a matter of when. Which, that's like the worst thing you could ever say as a head coach is, I'm probably going to get fired. And this was before he was bad at South Carolina. I think they have the chance to go 8-4, 9-3 if they have a couple big upsets this year. They have been waiting to beat Alabama for a couple years now, and they have a hard schedule. They're going to be playing a lot of the top dogs in the SEC. If they can knock a couple of them off, then I think they can have an overperforming season. Just, can you not blow a 30-3 halftime lead over Texas A&M this year? All right, so at 18, going back to the Big Ten, I'm going to go with Washington. I think Washington is destined to be ranked. It's kind of been interesting with Washington because actually last year they were kind of left out. That was a big story early in the year. It was, why is Washington not ranked? And then they kind of fell off later in the season. And we're like, okay, maybe that's why they aren't ranked. But they were like 3-4-0, and they had a couple good wins. And it's like, why are they not ranked? They should be ranked. And I think in this year, they will be ranked. Even though I think they were much better last year than they are this year, I think this team is hugely overrated. They do have DeMond Williams, who, if you remember, he tried to leave the program. They are losing their superstars, Denzel Boston. They are losing their running back Jonah Coleman. And kind of like how I said that Utah was the Big 12 version of Ole Miss, I think Washington is the Big 10 version of Ole Miss. I think this team is the DeMond Williams show, and if he doesn't throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns and runs in for a touchdown, 0 turnovers, then they're going to lose. They're going to lose big games. So I think this year is going to be an 8-4 year for Washington. All right, 17. I'm going to actually go with BYU. The Cougars in the Big 12, they are returning their quarterback, Bear Bachmeier, plus a huge offseason NIL deal with Crumble Cookies with Kalani Sitake. BYU, the next 5 years, I think, with this NIL deal, has the chance to elevate to a Utah-type program, an Oklahoma State-type program when they were in their prime with Mike Gundy. Texas Tech, they got all this oil money. Well, you just got $1 billion organization, a Crumble Cookie. My only problem with it is that is down the road. That isn't right now. When you look at last year, BYU went 11-2. They won their bowl game. One of the first teams that missed the CFP. What were their only 2 losses? Texas Tech, to a score of 29-7 and 34-7. And yeah, that defense for Texas Tech was spectacular. That team also put up 0 points in the playoff to Oregon. James Madison put up 34. You lost by that much to a team that got their ass kicked in the playoff, and now magically you're supposed to be a CFP contender? No, BYU is not a CFP contender to win playoff games. Are they a contender to potentially win the Big 12? I think so. I think the defense should get better. Question at receiver, Parker Kingston is gone with that whole situation. Charges were dropped, so I'm pretty sure he's innocent, but obviously he's not going to be on the team anymore. You lost your star quarterback, Jake Retzloff, 2 years ago, but you do have Bear Bachmeier back. I think Sitake is an incredible coach. I think BYU probably has a couple years left where they get into the top 10 and where they are the number 1 team in the Big 12. And it helps them that, Brendan Sorsby is gone at Texas Tech, but I think BYU needs a couple of years to mold. That's why they're at 17 and not 10. All right, so now at 16, I'm going to go with the Nittany Lions of Penn State. Man, Penn State is so weird this year because this is the first time really in my lifetime my experience of loving college football that it's not James Franklin. Drew Aller is gone. Nicholas Singleton is gone. Katron Allen is gone. All of that defense that was supposed to be amazing last year is gone. And they bring in Matt Campbell after the disaster with James Franklin last year. He brings in his senior quarterback, Rocco Becht from Iowa State. And this team is basically just Iowa State. It's basically just Iowa State. The only thing with Penn State that I could see them making the CFP is the schedule is incredibly easy. The schedule is incredibly easy. They don't play Ohio State. They don't play Oregon. They don't play Indiana. They don't play anyone in the non-conference. They play Michigan, Washington, and USC. If you can win one of those games and win out against all the other bums that you play, you're going to be 10-2. Does 10-2 get you in the CFP? I'm actually going to say no. I actually think a 9-3, I think like a 9-3 Ohio State gets in over a 10-2 Penn State because of the schedule difference. I think kind of like Indiana in 2024, if Penn State wants to get to the CFP, they're going to have to go 11-1 or 12-0. For the future of Penn State, I like Matt Campbell. I think he's a great coach, but kind of like Kirk Ferentz at Iowa, Matt Campbell at Iowa State, his motto was, we're going to take the 3 stars, we're going to get the most out of this roster. That is not what Penn State wants. We don't want you to get most out of no talent. You have talent. Make an elite roster with the talent we are funding and giving you. That is not what James Franklin did. Can you be elite against the top dogs in the Big Ten like Ohio State and Oregon and Indiana and Michigan? Can you do that? So I got Penn State at 16. Talking about a team that will play Penn State at 15, I am going to go with the team up north, the Michigan Wolverines. I actually think Michigan's roster is pretty underrated this year. When I did my Michigan-Oklahoma video, the more that I researched about Michigan's roster, their roster is similar to Oklahoma, and everyone's glazing Oklahoma. They have them at like 10-9, and Michigan's all the way down at 15. I think 15 is the perfect place that they will be. I think compared to like Oklahoma, I think their defense is a bit worse. Their quarterback is worse. So there's a reason why Oklahoma is better than Michigan. There's a reason why I have Oklahoma beating Michigan. I think Michigan will be exactly what everyone thinks they are. They are a 9-3 level team, but will probably go 8-4 or 7-5 because of their schedule. Bryce Underwood does not seem like he's really improved. If you remember Eric Weddle, who was a player under Kyle Whittingham, went to go see Bryce Underwood play in the spring game, and he just said he's not ready. He's not improving. He can't throw the ball. He's not a productive quarterback. And that he is not going to elevate this Michigan team at least this year. And looking at the other spots on the roster, wide receiver, even though you have Andrew Marsh, you're losing Dominic McCauley. And then at running back, you're losing Justice Haynes, who's one of the best running backs in the entire country. And you're going to have to rely on Jordan Marshall. Can Savion Hyder be amazing later in his career? Of course. Is it going to be taking away tons of snaps from Jordan Marshall? Probably not, unless Jordan Marshall has an injury or is a total disaster. You're losing your best Mike linebacker in Jayshawn Barron. You are returning Rod Moore, but he has been so injury prone throughout his career. I think he'll probably be the best defender on this team, aside from John Henry Daly, who Kyle Whittingham brought in from Utah. He is going to be a monster. I think he'll dominate in the Big Ten. And then also, it's Kyle Whittingham's first year at Michigan. What can you actually expect from him? I don't expect him to beat, Indiana. I don't expect him to beat Oregon. I don't expect him to beat Ohio State. Can he beat Oklahoma? I definitely think so. But I think that all of the guys that he brought in from Utah are going to need a little bit, maybe even a year to mesh. And we'll see if they can keep the same level of play from the Big 12 and elevate it to the Big 10. So I got Michigan at 15. Now at 14, I have Ole Miss. Again, Ole Miss is a team that is going to regress record-wise. Last year, they were 11-1. They beat Georgia. They almost beat Miami. They were so close to getting to the national title. I think this year they'll either go 9-3 or 8-4. They just lost too much in the portal. They lost too much at receiver, too much at edge, on defense, on coaching staff, your head coach. That playoff run against Georgia was magical, but I don't think that's going to be able to translate to a 12-plus game season where you're going to have to rely on the coaching of Pete Golding every single week. And remember, Pete Golding is a defensive coach, and this needs to be an offensive team because I don't think the defense is going to be that good. It's literally the Trinidad show. Kejuan Lacey is kind of injury prone. He was up and down last year. He's a great running back. He is a phenomenal running back, had some of the best stats in the entire country last year because of how many carries they were feeding him. And now that you're losing a lot at receiver, you're going to have to feed him more carries. You're going to have to rely on him more. And then if he gets hurt, it's literally Trinidad against everybody. It reminds me of Auburn with Cam Newton in 2010. It reminds me of Braxton Miller at Ohio State in 2012. It reminds me of Jaden Daniels at LSU in 2023, where it's the roster is awful. You're amazing. You have to save us every single week. And that's why I think Ole Miss is probably going to go 8-4 this year. They have a hard schedule. Does that mean Trinidad could have a Heisman year? I actually think he could. But I don't think Ole Miss is going to be making the CFP this year. This actually really reminds me of USC in 2023 with Caleb Williams. The year before, it was one of the best years at USC in like 10 years. Caleb Williams won the Heisman. They lose a lot. The next year, Caleb Williams is running for his life, and they go 7-5. I think that is actually a direct copy of what's going to happen to Ole Miss this year. So I got them at 14. I think they'll probably finish the year unranked, but I think that they will still get some respect for Kejuan Lacey and Trinidad. So I got them at 14. At 13, I have Texas Tech. Texas Tech will probably be the best team in the Big 12 this year. The only problem is quarterback. They lost Brendan Sorsby, but I think the defense, even though they lost Lee Hunter, they lost David Bailey, they lost Jacob Rodriguez, they lost a ton. They're just gonna buy more people in the portal. So this defense for Texas Tech, I still think is going to be very good. Will Hammond, the consistency's probably not going to be there, which is why I'm not expecting Texas Tech to win any playoff games. When Barrett Morton was injured last year, especially against Utah, Will Hammond came in and he actually was more explosive than Barrett Morton. So if Will Hammond can really put things together, especially later in the year this year, against Oklahoma State and the Utah, whoever, their Big 12 schedule, Texas Tech could have another, 12-1 year. I expect them to probably go 12-1 and win the Big 12 again this year. I will say I'm not fully sold. The consistency, I have not seen it yet from Will Hammond. It's also a cardinal sin to predict the same team to win the Big 12 2 years in a row. So maybe they won't win it, but for now, I'll just say Texas Tech will. They are my highest team in the Big 12 at 13. As now at 12, I have USC. USC is another dark horse that could go 8-4, like always, or they could win the Big 10 this year. I think this is one of the most balanced USC teams we have seen under Lincoln Riley probably ever. The combination of Waymo Jordan and King Miller in the backfield is awesome. They're returning Jada Mayava from last year, and if you have not watched his channel, I think Darian Mensah is going to win the Heisman. I think Jada Mayava is the second best quarterback in the country. I think USC beats Ohio State this year because of Jada Mayava's skills and his clutchness. My only concern is receiver. This is one of the most weak USC wide receiver cores we've had in a couple years. 2 years ago, they lose Zachariah Branch. Last year, they lose their Biletnikoff winner, Mekhi Lemon, and then they lost Jacoby Lane, who was one of the most spectacular receivers in college football the past couple of years. But I think the defense will be good enough to save USC in a couple one-possession games. That's where USC struggles. They're like 8-4, 9-3, and they have like 5 one-possession games, and they lose like 3 of the 5. If they can only lose 2 or 1 of the 5, now you're 10-2, 11-1. We're going to the playoffs. So that's why I'm excited about USC. Even though I hate them, I hate USC. I do. I'm an Ohio State fan. I hate what they did to us in the 2000s. USC, I think, is going to be really, really good this year. Now at 11, I'm going with the Lane train. We're going to Baton Rouge with the LSU Tigers. How long will Lane be here? Who knows? He could leave your ass in a month. But for now, Lane is still in Baton Rouge. And basically, they bought the entire transfer portal. This is not LSU anymore. This is the transfer portal Tigers. That is what I'm calling them from now on. This team is a mystery. Big, big mystery, as they have tons of star power. Sam Leavitt transferring from Arizona State. Jordan Sean, one of the best tackles in college football, transferring in from Colorado. They brought in the coaching staff. They brought in the edge rusher from Ole Miss, Princewell Umanmielen. I think that's how you say his name, who was great last year. They brought in everything. The era of Brian Kelly is finally over. They're bringing in Lane Kiffin. They're bringing in Ole Miss was been much better than LSU the past couple of years, and now they're just bringing everyone from Ole Miss that's not Trinidad and not Kiwan. So I think LSU is a mystery. I think they'll be ranked high in the AP poll just because they're an SEC team. It's Lane Kiffin. It's LSU. LSU always gets ranked in the top 15, even when they go 6-6, which has been pretty much every single year the past couple of years. And it is crazy that LSU has only ever made the CFP once. That was the Joe Burrow year, and they've never even appeared in a college football playoff game aside from that one year. For a program like LSU is definitely the most disappointing program the last 5 to 10 years. As now we are cracking the top 10, starting off at 10, another team that I think will regress record-wise. That is Texas A&M. I love the Aggies. I love Marcel Reed. They're returning Mario Craver. They're losing Casey Concepcion, but they're bringing in Isaiah Horton from Alabama. The defense was not great last year, especially in big moments. Think of the Texas game. Think of the South Carolina game. When they're on their game, they're amazing. Look at the second half of that South Carolina game. Look at the Miami game. That defense was really, really good. You are losing Cassius Howell, who was your best defender, but even though I love Mike Elko, I think he's one of the most underrated coaches in the entire country, the schedule is really hard, and it has one of the hardest stretches I have ever seen. I thought the stretch for Ohio State where it's at Indiana, bye week, USC, Oregon, that is incredibly difficult, but listen to this. So the schedule for Texas A&M, they start off the year with Arizona State, then a little bit later they go at LSU, a little bit later they go at Alabama. That's pretty freaking hard. Then you look at the end of their schedule, the last 4 games at South Carolina, Tennessee, at Oklahoma, Texas. Buddy, you ain't making the CFP with that schedule. You have to play Arizona State, at LSU, at Bama, at South Carolina, Tennessee, at Oklahoma, Texas. That is one of the hardest stretches. I mean, that's a month of just straight hell for Texas A&M. So I think Texas A&M is probably 9-3, 8-4, as always they are. So I don't got to make in the CFP. They will be ranked high to start off the AP poll at 10. As now at 9, I am going to go with Oklahoma. Oklahoma has a top 5 defense and a probably top 10 quarterback if he can stay healthy. Can John Mateer stay healthy though is the question. I don't know. He's very productive when he's healthy. Is that thumb injury going to, is that like an actual like lifelong injury that's going to be messing with him for the next 5 years? I don't know. Maybe. The schedule is very difficult for Oklahoma. They're going to have to play Georgia, Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. Those teams will have good to even great, even elite offenses, and the defense will be great, but the defense is not going to play amazing for all 12 games. Can John Mateer, down 13 in the third quarter, down 6 in the fourth quarter, come back? That is exactly what we saw in the Texas game. He was injured. He couldn't do it. That's what we saw in the Bama game. He completely sold that giant lead that they had, and he couldn't really make things work in the second half in that game. Wasn't all his fault, but if he can stay healthy, I'm really excited about Oklahoma and John Mateer. I think John Mateer can actually win the Heisman. He was supposed to win it last year. John Mateer was supposed to be what Fernando was last year. Now coming into this year under another year of John Arbuckle, I think Oklahoma can have a much improved offense with Satania and Blayrock in the backfield. So I got Oklahoma at 9. At 8, I am going to go with Alabama, probably the most overrated team in this entire freaking poll. I think Alabama is going to be pretty good this year if Keelan Russell can deliver just a year early. Remember, he's a true sophomore this year. I think he can have a good year. Honestly, next year's like the money year for Keelan Russell. That's like when you look at his quarterback class next year, Keelan Russell money year. Bryce Underwood money year, Tavian St. Clair first year of him starting. That's when that quarterback class is going to be really, really good. He is going to be starting a year early. Ty Simpson probably should have came back for another year. I know he got drafted really high, but he probably should have came back. And if Keelan Russell can deliver a year early than scheduled, then I think Alabama can get back to the CFP. I'm just not very confident that's going to happen this year. Alabama should probably be ranked in the 13 to 16 range, but knowing AP voters, they're going to be ranked in the top 10. They were ranked starting the year at 8 last year. I'll throw them at 8 now. Now at 7, I am going to go with Miami. The best offense, hands down, in the entire country, Miami. One of the most underrated teams in this poll. I think Miami's probably a top 3 team this year. Trench play is still going to be great. You're losing pretty much all your style power with Markel Bell, Francis Maligoa at tackle, and then Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor at edge. You are bringing in Damon Wilson from Missouri, who was originally at Georgia, was supposed to come to Ohio State. I was so excited, but he wanted more money, so he went to Missouri. Now he's leaving Missouri to go to Miami, so I don't know. This guy's a freaking mercenary. But I still believe in Miami's coaching on the offensive line and the defensive line. I know I kind of get some iffy stuff about it. Miami fans are whining and complaining. Either way, I get it. I actually, I probably was underselling Miami's coaching in the offensive and defensive line. And it wasn't just from star power. So I think Damon Wilson will probably have his best season, especially in the ACC, at Miami this year. Secondary will be a little bit of a question. Last year, the secondary did not have to be amazing just because of how fast the defensive line was getting home. But honestly, I don't even think that's really going to matter because of how good this offense is going to be. You bring in Darian Mental from Duke, who I think is going to win the Heisman. You have Mark Fletcher, who is a big bruiser back, who is so clutch to get you back into that national championship game, even though you lost. And then Malachi Toney as a true sophomore. Had a Ryan Williams type season last year. Is he going to regress like Ryan Williams? I don't know. I think Malachi Toney is a top 5 player in the sport. I think he's amazing. He's a superstar. And that's why I think Miami's a top 3 team. But because they're in the ACC, because they're not returning a starting quarterback, and since they lost a lot to the draft, the AP poll is going to sell on Miami because they're in the ACC, which is why I have them at 7. I think they're going to be better. I would probably have them at 3, but I think they're going to be at 7 for the preseason AP poll. At 6, I think they're going to go Indiana here. Everyone says that they have the best coaching and they discount their talent last year because of it. They say that, Indiana wasn't very talented last year. They just had great coaching and that's why they won the national championship. I'm calling BS. That's just glaze. That's just, we're going to undervalue our team so we can glaze Cignetti because we glaze Cignetti because we have nothing else to do. In 2024, when they got destroyed by Notre Dame and Ohio State, the coaching was bad. It was mental mistakes. Special teams was awful. Bad mistakes from the quarterback. And that was with Curtis Rourke. And Fernando was so much better than Curtis Rourke. Josh Hoover is just Curtis Rourke. I think Josh Hoover is a slightly improved Curtis Rourke. And no one was talking about the coaching in those games. No one was talking about how good the coaching was when they won by only 5 points to a 5-loss Michigan team at home. That game was sucky. I mean, that Indiana did not play well in any 3 of those games in 24. In 25, they should have lost to Iowa. They should have lost to Ohio State. And everyone forgets that because of what they did last year. I don't think that last year was a fluke. I think Indiana's going to be really good. But I think the idea that it's like those were the most least talented Indiana teams and now Indiana's going to be this superpower forever. They're going to be the next Alabama. It's like the past 3 years we have talked about you literally can't stack talent because of the new way of college football. Indiana is not going to be the next Alabama. They're not going to be better than Ohio State the next 10 years. Cignetti is a great coach. Josh Hoover is not it. Josh Hoover is not it. Charlie Becker is going to have to be your wide receiver 1 probably. Nick Marsh is probably the most overrated receiver I think I've ever seen. He is just, Nick Harbor is better than Nick Marsh. And I don't think Charlie Becker is a wide receiver 1. So I think Indiana probably goes 10-2 this year. Maybe 11-1, maybe 9-3. Probably they land at 10-2 this year. And then we'll talk about, hey, Indiana's good, but this whole thing where it's like, you talk about like CFP Budge and College Football with Sam, as much as those guys are good, this idea that like Indiana's going to go, like they act like, and they say Indiana's going to go 16-0 every single year. They're going to go 13-0 this year and win the Big Ten, beat everybody. They're going to beat everyone. They're going to go 15-1, and that's a bad year. They lose a national title, they go 15-1. That BS. Indiana is the most overrated, one of the most overrated teams this year. I got him at 6. Now cracking the top 5. Another super intriguing team, that is Notre Dame, because they can be average or they can be the best team in college football. My only concern with Notre Dame is the running game. Can the running game with Aeneas Williams step up when, the passing game is down? For defense, aside from Leonard Moore, can the defense be top 15? I mean, we talk about winning a national championship. If you want to win a national championship, you have to have a top 15 offense and a top 15 defense to even have a chance to win a national championship at least. Realistically, you need to have like 2 top 10 units to win a national championship. I think CJ Carr is going to be really, really good. I love this wide receiver room. It's so incredibly deep with Jordan Faison, Jaden Greathouse, Quincy Porter, Milam Graham. I mean, like, this wide receiver room is so deep and they'll have so many answers for so many different coverages on defense. And then if CJ Carr can take the next step after really, I think it was his true freshman year last year, or redshirt freshman year, I think Notre Dame has a chance to be really good. It's just, they're kind of the if team right now. They have a lot of potential, but they don't have a lot to show from it. Especially coming in from last year, that defense was abysmal. And now your best part of your team last year in Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, they're off in the NFL. They're gone. So that's why I have them at 5 and not higher. At 4, I have Texas. Honestly, I think Texas and Oregon and Miami are the only super teams in college football this year. Texas is super balanced. They have superstars at every skill position with Arch Manning at quarterback, Cam Coleman at wide receiver, even Hollywood Smothers at running back, and then Colin Simmons at edge rusher. My only concern is the offensive line really struggled last year. Can that gel more? Can Ryan Wingo step up when you need him? On defense, you lost a lot at linebacker and safety with Michael Taft and Anthony Hill Jr. Can you replace those guys? Can you bring in guys from the portal or the guys on your roster? Can they step up for this defense? And then Arch. The hype for Arch last year was immense. He played like ass for the first half of the year and then really played much better in the second half of the year. And I've been really hard on Arch. He did play much better last year, but also he's playing in the SEC. Those are not great teams. So in week 2 against Ohio State, we're really going to see it. Like, Arch, can you step up and win this game for us against Ohio State, who is kind of owned us the past couple of years. We cannot lose 3 years in a row. Can you come through and beat them for us? I got Texas at 4. I think Texas is probably going to win the SEC this year. We will see if this team can mesh later in the year, and I'm excited to see Texas. Hopefully Ohio State can beat them, but I got them at 4. At 3, I have Georgia. It's the AP poll. They always overrate Georgia compared to where they probably should be ranked. Georgia has a top 3 head coach in Kirby Smart. They are back-to-back SEC champions. They're returning their quarterback in Gunnar Stockton. The only concern I have for Georgia is the lack of playmakers and superstars on offense and defense. They don't really have an amazing edge rusher or an amazing tight end or an amazing running back. I mean, Nate Frazier's good. They don't have a superstar at quarterback. They don't have a superstar at receiver. So it's kind of like hey, where if Georgia's down in the second half, I don't know if they're going to be able to come back this year. I mean, that was the whole thing last year, was Georgia kept losing in the second half to bad SEC teams, and they had to miraculously come back. We saw that against Tennessee. We saw that against Florida and Auburn. You can't have that this year, Kirby. You need to come through. And even though I think Georgia literally has no holes on their roster, there is not a single position group, maybe aside from kicker, that I'm looking at Georgia and I'm like, yeah, bad. That's going to cost them a national championship. They don't really have the superstars. Gunnar Stockton, I think, is really good, but he is a really good college quarterback. You don't have a great receiver. I mean, really, if Nate Frazier does not save this team, I'm kind of concerned for Georgia this year. So now in the top 2, at 2, I'm going to go with the Oregon Ducks. It's kind of their year this year. Returning quarterback Dante Moore, College Football 27 cover athlete, top 3 offense with Ohio State and Miami this year. Top 3 defense with Oklahoma, with Ohio State, Georgia, Miami, maybe even Notre Dame. So they are damn near elite at every single side of the ball. And they are returning Evan Stewart, who was injured for all of last year, coming back. My only thing with Oregon is the past 2 years in the CFP has been awful. They got blown out, destroyed against Ohio State. They got blown out and destroyed against Indiana. But I think this program is in do or die mode, kind of what Michigan was in a couple years ago, kind of what Ohio State was in a couple years ago. Penn State tried to do that. Clemson, LSU tried to do that. They went 6-6, 5-7. So do I think Oregon's going to go 6-6 or win the national championship? I would definitely lean more to the national championship. Oregon is my national champion this year. I think they'll make it 4 years in a row for the Big Ten. I think that Dan Lanning will get his first national championship, and I think Oregon will get their first national championship in program history. They are long overdue for one, so I think they will be your national champion. But for the AP poll, I got him at 2, which means at 1, it's kind of been obvious. I think we all know this is probably going to be number 1, and that's Ohio State. Top 5 offense this year, top 5 defense, top 3, maybe probably the number 1 coaching staff with all the NFL guys that they brought in this year. They have the best player in the country in Jeremiah Smith. They have, I think, the 3rd or 4th best quarterback in Julian, probably a top 5 quarterback in Julian Sayin coming back this year. Bo Jackson in his true sophomore year. You're bringing back Matt Patricia. You are losing a lot of talent on defense. You're losing 8 starters on defense for the 2nd year in a row, but you filled in the gaps in the portal with James Smith from Alabama, Earl Little from Florida State, Terry Moore from Duke, Cam Calhoun from Alabama. So I am excited to watch this team. Arthur Smith, new offensive coordinator, had his stint with the Steelers. People were not a fan. I think him being paired up with Ryan Day will have the system that they ran last year under Brian Hartline with, the passing threat of Ryan Day, but the running game of Arthur Smith. So I am super high on Ohio State, but that is what I think the AP preseason poll will be. Ohio State caps it out at 1. I'll see if I can try to throw up all of the graphics now so you can see the entire top 25. But I hope you guys all enjoyed today's video. If you have not already, please hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 600. We are 30 subscribers away, so please help us get there. But I hope you guys all enjoyed today's video, as I will talk to you guys all tomorrow. And as always, thank you.